In this forecast, severe weather will return to the Northeast today, and a severe weather outbreak with all modes of severe weather may occur in the Midwest on Saturday. Extreme hail, damaging winds, and a few tornadoes may occur. And a major pattern change will bring more severe weather, but a cool down to portions of the United States. All of that and more is coming right up. Hey everybody, welcome back to a max velocity weather forecast, and today what we're going over is that severe weather potential over the next several days, including the severe weather outbreak that is expected in the Midwest on Saturday. I'm going to give you the latest details in terms of timing, the intensity, and everything that you need to know will be in this forecast. Let's hop right into it. So as of right now, there is a slight risk of severe weather for this afternoon that does include almost all of New England. There's also a marginal threat that does extend into central portions of New York, into southern New England. There's also another threat for severe weather down in the southeast. We'll get to that in a second. There's a low-end chance for a tornado threat today, but the main concern will be damaging winds across New England. Let's look at the timing for this afternoon. You can start to see by 12 to 1 o'clock, we'll begin to see storms firing up, especially up in Canada, close to areas like Quebec. Eventually, by about 2 to 3 o'clock, we'll have more pronounced storms developing across Vermont and New Hampshire. Again, main threat with these will be damaging winds. Cannot rule out a little bit of isolated large hail as well. By 4 to 5 o'clock, storms are becoming more of a broken line of storms all the way from, again, Maine down into southern New Hampshire and Vermont. As far south, again, as areas like Manchester by about 5 o'clock this afternoon. By about 6 to 7 o'clock, storms moving through areas in central and southern Maine as well. And eventually by 8 to 9 o'clock, most of the storm activity will either be entering into Canada or off the coast. Severe weather is not expected, though, after about 9 o'clock tonight. Down in southern New England, we'll have a few really isolated storms this afternoon developing. You can start seeing near Waterbury and Bridgeport, there might be an isolated storm or two that develop. Overall, the activity in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island will stay pretty minimal. I expect only isolated storm activity. By 7, 8 o'clock, most of the storm activity is going to be basically done by then. I only expect maybe a couple of storms. But if any storms do develop, again, we could see any threat of severe weather this afternoon. All right, let's take a look at the severe weather potential down in the southeast. There is a slight risk of severe weather currently that goes from Mississippi all the way back to North Carolina. There's also a marginal threat that goes into Texas and Oklahoma, by the way, and as well as through, again, anywhere off to the east coast, closer areas like North Carolina. Let's take a look at the timing over in Georgia and as well as South Carolina this afternoon. We'll see some scattered showers and storms developing primarily out toward Athens, Georgia, and maybe even near Greenville this afternoon. Eventually by 6 to 7 o'clock, storms are going to remain very, really widely scattered in this region, but any storms that develop are not going to move that fast, so they could pose a threat of a low-end flash flooding threat. By 8 to 9 o'clock tonight, most of the storm activity should be fizzling out for the most part. Can't rule out maybe an isolated severe storm after 10 o'clock, but I expect most of the severe weather to end after daylight heating expires. Here's a look at the ongoing timing for those in Mississippi and Alabama. Slightly higher risk of storms today. You can start to see some more showers and storms really firing up in central Mississippi and both Alabama. You can see near Birmingham, we're going to see some showers and storm activity late this evening. Eventually by 10 to 11 o'clock, storms moving down to the south and east. They could pose a threat for damaging winds going to the early overnight hours and eventually going closer to the coastline going to tomorrow morning. Again, a low-end chance for severe weather, though, after midnight tonight. Mainly just gusty winds, I would expect. Very low-end chance for severe weather tomorrow. This will eventually lead to that severe weather outbreak on Saturday. There's a marginal threat. It goes again from Wisconsin as well as Illinois, all the way back out into far northern Kansas. But here's what I'm talking about in terms of that big potential for severe weather outbreak. It's going to be on Saturday, and it looks like all modes of severe weather will be possible. That's almost a guaranteed at this point, but we are going to primarily be focusing on that damaging wind threat. There may be a few tornadoes as well along with that, but damaging wind seems to be the main concern. I cannot rule out, again, maybe a few tornadoes. One could even be strong, so we have to watch this stay very closely. But overall, enhanced risk of severe weather does exist in western central Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, and extreme northeastern Iowa. Slight risk goes all the way back out to the west into western Iowa as well as western portions of Minnesota, and a marginal threat exists through Nebraska. But overall, the main threat is going to be damaging winds, potentially some very large hail as well, and maybe a couple or maybe even a few tornadoes, which one may be strong. Here's a look at the low-level jet going to Saturday. This is late Saturday, and so you have to see the low-level jet's going to increase. So we're going to see 40 to 45 knots in the low-level jet. That is a moderate low-level jet. We're looking at definitely a strengthening low-level jet, which will help to boost the overall potential for maybe a couple of tornadoes. Here's a look at the timing. This is just a little sneak peek of a better forecast for you tomorrow in terms of what to expect for timing and more intensity guides and whatnot. But here's a look at the storms that might start to develop. You can start to see going closer to about 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. You can start to see some showers and storms developing. These are the ones that are going to be most concerning. Anything that's discrete will have to be watched very closely. But overall, again, any storms that do develop will have the best chance for maybe large hail, damaging winds, maybe an isolated tornado. Again, we're going to have to watch this area very closely, though. More details again on that in tomorrow's forecast. Let's take a look at the overall temperatures over the next several days. A cool down may be on the way. Don't be too concerned about this, because actually it would bring very beneficial potential temperature relief to a lot of us that need it. But you can start to see the little low pressure system back up here in Canada. That'll eventually be moving off to the northeast, but another little cold blast may come through areas like the central United States. Depending on what happens next week, a little trough may move through areas like New England. That might bring a cool down to the south and as well as the central portions of the plains. That might drop temperatures as much as 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, which is about 10 to 20 degrees almost in terms of that. So we definitely could see a potentially really beneficial cool down overall. Again, temperatures in North Texas, for example, they're close to 110 and 100 right now. They will eventually potentially drop as low as the upper 80s, maybe even low 90s. So definitely a lot of relief coming for some of us. Make sure to stay tuned. We'll keep you updated the latest on those details and more. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and like the video. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting and All Dense Repair.